Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a great weekend, man. I had a fabulous one. The weather down here in Florida was spectacular over the weekend. I went on one of my fishing trips, and I got to tell you, I had one of the better trips I've had in a long time. I don't have any pictures to share with you right now, but maybe we'll share some over the week. But I enjoyed it very much. And apparently it was good weather for CPAC. We're going to talk all things CPAC here in just a moment. But CPAC had a spectacular event. The first time I believe it's ever been outside of the D.C. area. You know, it was held in Florida this year, mainly due to all the COVID restrictions. But I would not be surprised if they didn't decide to keep it in Florida, as well as apparently this one went. So we're going to talk about how CPAC turned into TPAC. It was a Trump PAC event. And then I'm going to show you a video. We'll have time, I'll make time for it if I have to, about Joe Biden. And literally, he had an event in Texas, and he literally said on camera, "What am I doing here?" And we'll play that, man. It's a scary thought. But before we go any further, I always have to talk about our sponsors. Big Daddy Unlimited, otherwise known as BDU. You know, I tell you all the time, ladies and gentlemen, not everybody can be a fighter, but everybody can support those of us in the fight. And Big Daddy Unlimited is not only a fighter, your Second Amendment headquarters, but they really give us a lot of encouragement, help, and support here. So they are fighting with us, and we're glad to be standing side by side with them. To see where our sponsors are, to get the link to them, look above the video, no matter when or where you're watching it, and you'll see a description to the show. Scroll down on it, and you'll see links to our sponsors. Big Daddy Unlimited will deliver directly to your door, factory direct pricing on guns, ammunition, thousands of other, literally 100,000 other items, including tactical gear, protective gear, anything that has to do with the Second Amendment, survival type stuff, as well as just plain old swag if you want it. And they give you factory direct pricing on all of that. And they are going into all aspects of the Second Amendment, not only defending your Second Amendment right, but as I've announced last week, they've announced they're building an ammunition factory literally as we speak. And so all of your needs will eventually, if not right now, and they probably are, covered at Big Daddy Unlimited. Then we also have patriotthreads.org, apparel with a purpose. They have, and I rock their shirts at least once a week. We'll probably wear one this week. But they have exactly what it says, patriotic threads, patriotic clothing, and they can help you with charity events. They're a fulfillment center. That means they can design a shirt, take your order. They can help direct the proceeds to whatever charity of your choice and all of that kind of stuff. So check out patriotthreads.org. And then Recoil TV, they have a YouTube channel, Recoil TV on YouTube. Of course, we have our own YouTube channel, John Martin Talks. Check it out. But Recoil archives our show on there. We have a channel within their channel, and they're all about the Second Amendment as well when it comes to videos, product promotions, demonstrations, all those kind of things. Check out Recoil TV. All right, let's get into the show here. We're using a New York Times template. They came away with about a half a dozen takeaways of the event, so we're kind of using their paper as a template, and we're going to get into the speakers there and certainly a lot of Donald Trump, his first major event since leaving the White House. And it does, as I continue to tell you guys, it does my heart no good to say that, but I got to state the facts as they are. CPAC takeaways: Trump, Kristi Noem, Ron DeSantis, cancel culture, according to the New York Times. Now, there's Mr. Trump in all of his glory yesterday. Now, he was about an hour and a half, I want to say, late in giving his speech, and then it lasted about an hour and a half. But people seem to be thrilled to just be in the same room with him. I know I was thrilled to watch it. Of course, I was out fishing, so I missed most of CPAC, except I watched Donald Trump's speech live. I did record a lot of it and watch some of the key speeches and listen to some of the coverage. So I feel pretty comfortable in talking about the event as a whole. Here we go. Any lingering belief that Donald J. Trump would fade from the political scene, like there was any belief he would, like other past presidents, because he didn't like any past, present, or former, or maybe future president, evaporated fully on Sunday as he spoke for more than 90 minutes in a grievance-filled, that's what they're calling it, and self-promoting address that sought to polish up his presidential legacy, take aim at his enemies, and tease his political future. Well, he did all of that and more. I mean, it was there. It didn't matter. Love it, Trump, hate Trump, somewhere in between, don't care. There was something in it for everybody there. It was an all-encompassing speech. But before we go any further, I want to make a comment about a group of people. And that is a group of the MAGA people. What Joe Biden calls mostly bad people, that kind of thing. You drag society, you deplorables, especially those of you who go the extra mile. I got a friend of mine. I'm going to show his picture right now. His name is Cliff, and I've talked about him on the show quite a bit, but he's one of those type people. There are people like Cliff all over the country, and you can't see it too good there, but that flag is, I believe they call it the Betsy Ross with the 13 colonies. That flag is very, very special, not only for what it represents to all of us, but personally to him. That flag has been in his family for a long time, and he told me that the last time it was unfolded or folded was for his father's funeral, I think about a decade ago. Don't hold me to that. But he brought it back out, made sure it was okay, and took the flag from basically the Sarasota area where he lives across the state to Orlando. And you can't really tell it maybe unless you know what you're looking at, but that is like an Alaskan cod pole fishing rod that he's got it tied to there. We met fishing, as you can imagine. I'm the old salty dog they sometimes call me, make fishing great again. He, by the way, is the guy that gave me this hat some time ago, so I appreciate. But people like my friend Cliff, who literally, I mean, I remember going to Trump rallies in 2016, 2015 when he was running for election. And I met people who were like groupies for the Rolling Stones or like the Grateful Dead in the old days that literally had been to every Trump rally everywhere in the country. And sometimes they drove 10, 12 hours to go from one to the next one. Now, that type of loyalty I have never seen before for a president. And my friend Cliff said that there were tens of thousands of people down there around this event, outside of it and everything else. He told me there was a Black Lives Matter demonstration across from where they were standing, about 30 people, and a young woman had like a shirt on that said something about hands off or something like that. And he actually walked up to her, and this is what I tell people all the time. We need to be warriors, but cheerful warriors, and my friend Cliff is certainly that. He walked up to her and told her that he was glad that she was there, and she was like, well, flabbergasted by that statement. And he said, yeah, we're here so that you can be here. And what he means by that, I think, is that, standing up for your constitutional rights, like freedom of speech, which the left doesn't seem to believe anymore, is the reason why you can have Black Lives Matter groups standing there across from Trump supporters. And we can all have our day in the sun, so to speak, say our opinions without violence. We don't have to beat each other up because we have differences of opinions. And all of that, really, the left used to champion those kind of things, but not so much. But I applaud all of you Cliffs out there and Cliffettes or whatever, because the men and women that make me want to show up every morning. It's people like Cliff. It's people like you out there that are showing up on a daily basis, showing up to our show. We really appreciate it. But I just want to give you a tip of the hat, so to speak, for being persistent and consistent patriots. I appreciate it more than I can ever let you know. But here are some of the takeaways, according to the New York Times, from the first major Republican gathering of post-Trump era. I don't know, is there a post-Trump era? because, I don't know that the Trump era, whether he runs for president, and we'll talk about that more in just a minute or not, I think the Trump era, as he said, is just getting started, really, because I expect Donald Trump to be a major political force for a long time. Don't expect Donald Trump to just ride off to the ranch like some of these other presidents do. Of course, they criticize Donald Trump for this sometimes, but really, if you look at Obama, he's done the same thing, but in a sly, sneaky way. He's still got his finger on the strings and the buttons in a sly way. At least Donald Trump is just out front forward with it. There's no falsehood. There's no pretending with Donald Trump. He is who he is, and he is there. And I much prefer, even if I didn't like Donald Trump, which I got a man crush on him, I admit that. Even if I didn't like Donald Trump, I would respect how he does it much more than, say, Obama does it. Now, people like George Bush Jr., who essentially have stayed out of it and, hanging out at the ranch, I don't have a problem with that either. But don't be phony about it. And I think that's what Obama is. He's phony. Trump is still out there, and I expect him to, whether he runs or not, I expect him to actually be a major force for a long time. But according to the Times here, it says, this is one of their first takeaways, Trump has almost total dominance. No joke. Wherever Donald Trump is, he dominates the thing. He is literally a textbook alpha male. Now, I know that's not supposed to be popular. I was talking to a good friend of mine, another fishing buddy of mine, Damien. I don't know if he listened to the show, but he lives up in Atlanta, and we always chat back and forth about these fishing trips. And when I was coming back, I called him and told him about the trip, and we got to talking about how, and I just to tell you, he's a black man. I'm guessing about 35. And, we're supposed to be polar opposites, right? But we actually are pretty much alike, especially when our passion for fishing. But we were talking about how there's no men anymore. Where have the men gone? There are no real men left out there. I mean, he tells me up in Atlanta, you wouldn't believe it, man, the feminization of men out there. He said a lot of his friends now are like, they got these bags, and he asked me, are you wearing a purse? That kind of thing. But it's true, man. There just aren't many alpha males out there right now. But Donald Trump is definitely one of those. But this is one of the big things that Mr. Trump said at the event. He said, I'm not starting a new party, nixing rumors that he'd been. And he went into the reasons why. He said, basically what I've been saying, we need to take over the Republican Party from the grassroots to ground up. We need to do that. And I actually attended, I didn't talk about it Friday, but Thursday night I attended our local Republican Executive Committee meeting. And I am a representative now for my precinct. I used to be on the board of directors, but now I'm just a representative of my precinct. And, there's definitely a little bit of a tug of war. It's not really anti-Trump per se, but there is a tug of war going on, and I'm assuming this is going all over the country, about whether or not we should basically embrace the populism of Donald Trump, or go back to some type of more establishment Republican Party. And I got to tell you, I spoke out. I said, this idea, because we had and I'll let him remain anonymous, but there was a gentleman that represented some legislative people there, and he spoke about how Republicans need to be working with moderate Democrats. And I told him, I raised my hand and got recognized. I said, I'd like to know who are moderate Democrats. I don't think any moderate Democrats exist. There's probably moderate Republicans, but I told him, you need to go back and tell your people that, at least in my area, the only thing you find in the middle of the road is dead skunks and possums. And does your representative want to be that? Because I firmly believe that we need to take our lead from the two best presidents in my lifetime, Donald Trump and, of course, Ronald Reagan, who told us not to paint in pastel colors, but to paint in bold colors. Now, if there ever was a time, now is the time to be bold. So I implore you, deplorables out there, to take over fully the Republican Party. Take what Donald Trump said seriously yesterday. Take over the Republican Party, because we don't need to have a third party. Because I've been telling you, my goal, and it sounds like President Trump's goal is the same way, same thing. My only goal politically right now is to stop the progressive takeover of this country. And I don't care if you're running for the White House, the outhouse, or somewhere in between, whether it's fair or not, I'm going to judge you based on that one criteria. Is your candidacy, are your ideas helping to stop the takeover of the progressives of this country, great country of ours, or not? And that, I hate to say it, but that's all I care about. That's where I'm at right now. I don't know where you are. Chime in on Facebook or YouTube. Spell it out. John Martin Talks on YouTube. Let me know how you feel, and I'll respond to you as quickly as possible. Do you agree with me or not that our goal right now is to stop the progressive takeover of this country? Because if we don't, nothing else really matters, right? And back to the New York Times article. And why would he be, when he talks about forming a third, but Donald Trump came out against a third party? Mr. Trump remains the most influential Republican politician in the nation. And there's not a close second, really. Not at all. The 3-day CPAC gathering in Orlando showed how fully the Republican Party has been remade in his image in the 5 years since he boycotted the conference in 2016 en route to capturing the party's nomination. Well, one of the things that Trump pointed out, and I think he's absolutely right about this, is there's no real war going on in the Republican Party between the rank and file, because the rank and file is primarily the Trump party now. It really is. He said that there's a few political hacks in D.C. that are the real issue, and I think he's absolutely right about that. And he went into, we're going to talk about detail of him naming names here in just a moment. But the Republican Party, they need to make a decision. Do they want to represent America as a whole? Do they want to be the party of working people, a big tent party? Because Donald Trump, this gets lost in the fact that he, whether we don't say fraud here, we don't say that F word. I just said up. I'm not accusing anybody. We call it mod here. We don't say the F word. We don't say the S word. We call it squealing and not something else that rhymes with that. But the fact that Donald Trump, for whatever reason, maybe he didn't get enough ballots, I suppose, is not the president. They forget, and President Trump actually did a very good job of pointing this out. They forget how big the victory was in general for Republicans. When you stop and look at it, Republicans gained numerous House seats. They almost held the Senate, and if it wasn't for what I think is unconstitutional balloting with the absentee ballots, the vote by mail, which is unconstitutional the way they did it, then they would have held on to the Senate seats even in Georgia. Because if you look at it with that consent decree with Stacey Abrams and the administration of Secretary of State there in Georgia, it allowed ballots to be counted that never would have counted before. Keep in mind that in 2016, to give you an example, the rejection rate on mail-in ballots was about 6%. And they didn't have near the number of ballots they had in 2020, but the rejection rate under this consent decree was like 1/3%. So you don't even have to go to all the Dominion deal and all of that kind of stuff to come up with the votes that would have elected Donald Trump. Had they had their normal rate of rejection, think about this, Donald Trump, because there was hundreds of thousands more mail-in ballots than before, and if they were at 6%, that would have been enough right there to turn the election for Trump in Georgia, and the Senate would have remained in the Republican hands. So there's a lot of victories that were had in 2020, and Donald Trump just got out balloted. But the Republican Party needs to decide whether it wants to do what basically President Trump did in Florida, and the help of Ron DeSantis, and we'll talk about him and the Republican Party in general. The RPOF in Florida did a great job in 2020. And I'm not just talking about the fact that Donald Trump won. I'm talking about the coalition that was built around the winning side with Donald Trump. That's what needs to be modeled across America. And if that happens, then conservatives can actually take back the White House all the way down to the outhouse if we want to. It's really up to us. But Mr. Trump named every Republican. Man, he named names. It reminded me of that Seinfeld episode. You naming names. Donald Trump, love him, hate him, whatever. He don't pea foot around, man. He just called a spade a spade. He named every Republican that needs to be primaried, the 10 that voted against him, and he talked about how he's coming for them, and he talked about the senators that voted to impeach him and all that. He put it out there. You don't have to wonder where Donald Trump thinks. Thanks to Donald Trump, of course, you don't have to wonder what he thinks. He's going to tell you, sometimes his own detriment, but Donald Trump will tell you. And also thanks to him, the left will tell you where they are too, because they suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. And I can only imagine, I haven't had time to really look at the reaction from the left, but I can only imagine what they had to say after some of the things he said at the CPAC meeting. Mr. Trump, as I say, named every Republican who voted for his impeachment. He said, get rid of them all. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I'll do my part. He said that he predicted a Republican would win the White House in 2024. And then he goes, who will that be? I wonder. Now, he talked about he's forming this PAC. Go to what was it, DonaldTrump.com, I think it was. I hope that's right. And he's forming a PAC to do all kind of things. But a lot of it is to aim at these different congressional races and get rid of some of these people. And I'm with him on that. But he named names. And one of the people that spoke there was Mike Lindell. Remember him, the MyPillow guy? You got to love that dude, man. I mean, if you're conservative, I don't see how you can't love some Mike Lindell. So, Mike, show me some love. Contact us, and I'll be happy to push some MyPillows. My wife actually has a couple, and she loves them very much. But who will it be? Who will it be? Now, Mike talked about at the thing. He talked about his exposure to this movie he's made that has been banned already from like YouTube and everything, about primarily about the Dominion software and all that. And the company that makes the Dominion software is threatening a libel suit against him. And he called him out. He said, sue me. Come on, bring it on, because that'll give me a chance to put the discovery out there. So one thing for sure, and Donald Trump spoke about this, we've got to clean up the election process. Forget Donald Trump for a minute. For any conservative to win nationwide in the White House, we've got to get our houses in order in these states. And basically, we've got to shore up this vote by mail deal and everything else. Because think about this: if we had gone, let me back up. If we'd stayed with the original system, even with the Dominion stuff and everything else, from the mail-in voting and how it's done and how it's counted and all these kind of things, from Pennsylvania to Georgia to all the states, including several that weren't sued by Texas, if that had just reverted back to the original way it was supposed to be, I think Donald Trump be in the White House now, despite any kind of mod in other places or dead people voting. But here he's saying, who will it be? Well, I said this here a couple months ago. Of course, if I say it, it bears repeating. I got away because Mike Lindell was saying that once all the stuff comes out about the Dominion stuff, it'll show the fraud and Donald Trump will be back in the White House, and before long. I don't know if I believe it. I get what he's saying. I'm encouraging him to look for the mod wherever it may be and wherever the squealing went on. I absolutely, I'm with you, Mike. Go for that. But there's a quicker way that Donald Trump could actually become president. First of all, let's take back the House of Representatives. Then once we take back the House of Representatives can pick, according to the U.S. Constitution, they can pick anybody to be the Speaker of the House. Don't have to be a member of the House. So we take back the House of Representatives. Donald Trump becomes Speaker of the House, which puts him third in line for the presidency. And then we impeach Biden and old Kamala Harris. We got to throw her in the boot, man. We put old Kamala, we put the Biden Harris. There you go. I mean, that cartoon is probably a whole lot truer than you might think. But we put Donald Trump as Speaker of the House, get rid of them two, and then he becomes the Speaker, third in line. Hey, I'm just saying, Craig, if anybody could do it, it would be DJT. The speech came right after Mr. Trump won a CPAC 2024 presidential straw poll, finishing with 55% of the vote, more than double the percentage of his closest runners-up. But they point out here something that is a mixed message, I would agree. It says, But that victory was dampened by the fact that only 68% of the attendees at the conference said they wanted him to run again. I actually think that's still a huge number. Can you imagine any other person, any other Republican ever, or any of them on the radar screen, if they actually got defeated at the ballot box, however you want to label it, that they would actually have a shot to run again, that basically 70% of the Republicans would say, I want you to run again? I don't think that could possibly happen to anybody but Donald Trump. And then when you put on top of all the crap that they've piled on Trump, from him lack of support in the upper echelons of the Republican Party, the never Trumpers and all that, to the fact that he was impeached twice, and the mainstream media has essentially called him everything but a child of God, and the fact that he's polling at all above zero is amazing. But basically 70%. And keep in mind that they had a couple of straw polls that were released that showed that his approval rating among people was in the high 90 percentile. So I think actually his numbers are very strong, and the 68% is amazingly strong to me. And it's probably even higher. A second straw poll without Mr. Trump was carried by Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, who received 43% of it in his home turf. That doesn't necessarily mean that much, because a lot of the attendees came from other places. So it's not, what I'm saying is, it wasn't just the fact that it was in Florida. I think DeSantis is a rising superstar. But followed by Governor Kristi Noem, another rising superstar, South Dakota, with 11%. Let me just tell you, man, do we have the best governors, Republican governors, DeSantis and Kristi Noem? I mean, they are amazing people. I mean, can you name one Democrat governor that even could hold a candle to either one of them, let alone both of them? Now, we got a few crap governors as well, Republicans, like the Hogan in Maryland, and of course Kemp now in Georgia, who's probably the biggest disappointment to me. But man, do we have some governors. And think about this, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to play a video from last year. I got to give Tucker Carlson, sorry about it, I'm having a Biden moment there for a minute, Tucker Carlson credit for this. But this is New Jersey Governor Murphy, when Tucker Carlson famously asked him what gave him the right to basically shut churches down and businesses and circumvent the Bill of Rights. I want to play this, and while you're watching it, I want you to think about the other Democratic governors that could basically say the same thing, compared to governors like Ron DeSantis and Kristi Noem. Check it out.
So you made that decision, and as I noted before, 15 congregants at a synagogue in New Jersey were arrested and charged for being in a synagogue together. Now, the Bill of Rights, as you well know, protects Americans' right, enshrines their right to practice their religion as they see fit and to congregate together, to assemble peacefully. By what authority did you nullify the Bill of Rights in issuing this order? How do you have the power to do that?
That's above my pay grade, Tucker. So I wasn't thinking of the Bill of Rights when we did this. We went to all, first of all, we looked at the data and the science, and it says...
I can tell, like Tucker says at the end. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. How frightening, really. If you were, don't even have to like Donald Trump. Say you don't like Donald Trump. If you care about this country, I don't care what party or no party or whatever, if you are a patriot and you care about the Constitution and you believe that this experiment we call the United States of America is the greatest thing that's happened, and that we live under a Constitution that is set up, people don't realize this, a lot of people, because we don't teach it anymore, but the Constitution is not designed to empower government. No, it's not. It's not to help set up the government and empower government. It is to protect the people and their God-given inalienable rights. It is to protect the people from the overreach of a powerful government. Just the opposite of what the Democrats are pushing now, at least the Democratic leaders, by the way, the progressive leftists that have taken over this country right now. And that's my only goal, is to stop them. But think about that, ladies and gentlemen. That governor in New Jersey basically speaks for all these, from Whitmer all the way to Newsom and everybody else, Wolf in Pennsylvania, I could name them all. that shut this country down? What gave them the constitutional right to shut us down and to shut us out of church? And Ted Cruz has a great line, and we'll get to in just a minute about that. He had a great speech at CPAC as well. But what gave them the right to be these basically Napoleonic dictators? Nothing. They created it. They pulled it out of something, thin air, whatever you want to call it. But if you go back and look at that video, he literally is smiling, Governor Murphy in New Jersey. I didn't even above my pay grade. I didn't even think about the Bill of Rights. No joke. And that is the problem right there. I don't care what political party you are. For a governor to sit there and say, I wasn't even thinking about the Bill of Rights, should scare you to death. Even if you don't like Donald Trump, it should terrify you that someone could be the highest office in a state, a governor of a state, and say, I wasn't even thinking about the Bill of Rights. That statement alone is enough to vote for Donald Trump again, or whoever is the opposite of what Murphy is saying there. Because you should be thinking about, if you're willing to be a leader in this nation, I don't care if you're running for school board or city commissioner all the way up to President of the United States, the Bill of Rights should be in the front of your mind, not somewhere in the shadows. Because without our God-given rights, what good is anything anyway? If our rights aren't going to be protected, our God-given inalienable rights protected, then the whole thing is for moot. It's a moot point. And so it just burns me when I see that. All right, next thing here, cancel culture, according to the New York Times, is the new fake news. And they make a good case about that. And I would agree with that statement. Actually, that wasn't what they were intended. They're just comparing to Donald Trump. In his first presidential bid, Mr. Trump adopted fake news as a rallying cry against the traditional news. Well, the traditional news is the fake news media, and then effectively and relentlessly deployed it to position himself as the sole arbiter of truth to his supporters. The sole arbiter of truth, right? So they're saying that Donald Trump called out fake news to make himself look like the arbiter of truth. Well, at least he cares about the truth. At least he can spell the word truth and could put it in a coherent sentence. I mean, the Democrats have outballoted us and elected to the highest office of the land somebody who doesn't know truth from fact or fiction or gobbledygook. If you don't believe me, listen to Biden in his own words when he was campaigning in Iowa last year. Check it out.
We choose unity over division. We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts. And so, folks, if you're interested, join me. I could use the help.
Yeah, join me. I could use the help. We choose truth over facts. I hate to break it to you, Joe, but what is the truth versus? I mean, it's unbelievable, man. It reminds me of George Bush's Jr.'s defense secretary when he got up there and when they asked him, is there a department of misinformation in the Pentagon? And he looked right at the cameras and said, I refer all questions about the Department of Disinformation to the Department of Disinformation. I mean, these people that get appointed and elected to office, man, it is not always the best and the brightest. Let me tell you this right now. Back to the story here. The lineup of CPAC speakers over the weekend showed how thoroughly a new pair of catchphrases, cancel culture, and the woke mob. I mean, to me, does that not describe exactly what is happening in our country right now? Are animating a Republican Party that, beyond supporting Mr. Trump, appears increasingly centered on defining itself in opposition to the left. Thank God, that's where we need to go. We don't need to be looking to work with moderate Democrats. There aren't any moderate Democrats. Name me one up there. Now, they want to say Joe Manchin. I don't know. I don't trust that dude at all. I don't trust any of them. I think we need to flush them all out. We need that kitty flush that I've shown you from time to time. But what would you call it, ladies and gentlemen? They're criticizing the Republicans for coining the phrase cancel culture and woke mob. What would you call it? I mean, I think that accurately describes what is happening right now. You're being canceled no matter what. I mean, Facebook jail. They put me in Facebook jail. Algorithm. I'm glad to be out, Mr. Al. So let me just tell you that I am. But what gets me is they never even told me why. I violated some kind of community standard when I ask about it. And then they refer me like the Department of Disinformation, like Rumsfeld said, go to the Department of Disinformation for all the news disinformation. If you've ever been in Facebook jail and you inquire, that's basically what happens. They refer you back their policy, but it don't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you what you did wrong. How can I correct it if I don't know? I'm not saying I will, because I'm not politically correct. If you're tuning in for the first time, first of all, welcome. Howdy, how are you? Where have you been? But you're in the right place now. But if you're looking for political correctness, you made a wrong turn. But stay here and you might actually learn something. But it's just amazing that they want to turn around and say that cancer culture and the woke mob are like not accurate or whatever. I don't get it. But Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri began his CPAC speech. He said, "Didn't anybody tell you you're supposed to be canceled?" And he ought to know he got his book deal canceled and everything else because he stood up patriotically on January 6th, and he talked about that. He said you might remember, some of you might remember what happened. But I was telling you about Facebook jail. Let me give you another way it works. And maybe I'm wrong about this. I know I got a lot of loyal people that watch the show. Our numbers fluctuate a lot, but there's a certain consistent bunch of you people that I was talking about earlier that show up on Facebook all the time. And I really, really appreciate the loyal viewers that I have. But, we peaked a while back. We had a few, just to show you how Facebook can be. And I'm not trying to pick on them. It's just where I have the best numbers. But we had multiple shows of ours go over 200,000 views. 200,000 views in a 24-hour period. And this was before they announced Facebook made an announcement, not directed necessarily at me, but they made an announcement that they were going to curtail political talk about 2 weeks before the election. So we were consistently getting 30, 40,000 views. Like I say, we had a few shows that went over 200,000. All of a sudden, 2 weeks before the election, they went down to 1,000. Just boom, And it's been slowly but surely returning. But they say they're not promoting anything political anymore. So that's why I tell you, as a listener out there, and this is not just about Facebook, you have to be proactive. You have to search us out, people like us, and be proactive. Support sponsors like we have at Big Daddy Unlimited. Support people that are fighters, because I say not everybody can be a fighter, but everybody can support those of us in the fight. And you got to seek out what we're doing. I'll give you a quick example of it. I was flipping through the dials because yesterday waiting on the president, and CNN was all about attacking Trump and what he may or may not say right before he came on stage. But the second that he came on stage, they cut away and they never even went back to it. So they didn't show it at all. You had to seek it out. Fox, I think, carried. I know America's Voice News. By the way, if you haven't ever tuned into them, America's Voice News is a terrific alternative to the mainstream media. They stream on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. You can download free apps on your Android or your iPhone. They're on channel 219 Dish Network, and they're on the Pluto channel. We have a show on there, but it's not carried live at the moment. But you can go to there, look at their streaming channel, and check out the shows tab. Click on that, and you'll see our shows archived on there. But they're an excellent way to get around the blackout, if you will, of the mainstream media. But we're under attack. And what I'm saying is, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see programming like ours, you're going to have to be more proactive, support our sponsors, search us out, and invite people, send out emails, whatever you got to do, invite people to look at the show, because I'm battling ignorance and apathy daily, and we need more support. So appreciate that. The crowd cheered as cancer culture served throughout the weekend as a shorthand for the bashing the news media, railing against the tech industry, in particular Twitter and Facebook's decision to bar Trump from their platforms, and spreading fear about the decline of conservatives and religious values in American pop culture. So they're acting like there's no consequences for the cancel culture and the loss of, what do they say here, conservative and religious values in American pop culture. Well, I'm going to play another governor. I'm on a governor kick right now. This is a Democratic governor of the great state of Virginia. If you want to know, I tell you all the time, progressives take everything to an extreme. And I've used abortion as an example. Under Clinton's, it was supposed to be safe, legal, and rare. Where is it now? What are they discussing now? So if you want to see what happens with the absence of conservatism in pop culture and religion in our institutions, in our culture, all you got to do is listen to old blackface Ralph Northam himself when he describes about abortion and what extreme he's willing to take it. Check it out.
Republican delegate about whether her bill would permit an abortion even as a woman is essentially dilating, ready to give birth. And she answered that it would permit an abortion at that stage of labor. Do you support her measure and explain her answer?
Yeah, and I wasn't there, Julie, and I certainly can't speak for Delegate Tran, but I would tell you, first thing I would say is this is why decisions such as this should be made by providers, physicians, and the mothers and fathers that are involved. There are, when we talk about third trimester abortions, these are done with the consent of obviously the mother, with the consent of the physicians, more than one physician, by the way. And it's done in cases where there may be severe deformities, there may be a fetus that's non-viable. So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So I think this was really blown out of proportion.
Think about it. Blown out of proportion. Blown out of proportion. The baby is born. No, not aborted, but born. And then they look at it, and if they can resuscitate it if necessary or not. But if the baby is living, so they resuscitate it, bring it back to life, and then they have a discussion about whether or not to cut its head off, basically. I mean, my God, ladies and gentlemen, if you needed, I don't care what side of the abortion issue you're on, if you needed a clearer example of where our culture is going, absent conservatism and religious faith and belief, I mean, there you go. Off with his head after we discuss it, man. I got to read this one from a quote from Ted Cruz, because he kind of addresses the same issue about culture and religion. He says, "You can French kiss the guy next to you yelling, 'Abolish the police,' and no one will get infected," talking about the COVID, he mocked. "But if you go to church and say Amazing Grace, everyone is going to die." I mean, that's a good one, man. And President Trump made them all go crazy, especially on the left. I did look at this part when he talked about the attack on women, anti-women, talking about, these men competing against women and everything else. The left just went all ballistic about that. He talked about, the stopping the as I call it, the squeal and the voter mod and everything else. I didn't think he went too overboard on that. And he basically presented that the SCOTUS is what let us down when they wouldn't take on the cases. So he's talked about cleaning it up state by state, and that's what we need to do. We're almost out of time, so I have to scroll. I'm going to scroll all the way down here to something that Ron DeSantis said. He said, because he opened the event and he was terrific. He said, "We consider," because one of the things this article debates is whether or not CPAC used to be all about policy, and right now it's all about kind of ideals, if you will. And I agree with what Ron DeSantis is saying right here. He says, "We can sit around and have academic debates about conservative policy. We can do that," he said, "but the question is, when the Klieg lights come on," which is basically stage lights, I'm under Klieg lights right now, "get hot, when the left comes for you, will you stay strong or will you fold?" Right there. DeSantis is absolutely right. And he's proven when the lights are the brightest, he's the strongest. And people like Mitch McConnell, when they put the light on him, he's like old Turtlehead. He goes back in his shell. We need more Ron DeSantis's and less Mitch McConnell's. I can tell you that. And Kristi Noem, and we just got to have that, man. But I want to close it out with this. Let me check my time. I got about 2 or 3 minutes left, just enough time. So we're going to go down and close out this part, and then we're going to play you a video here that is just unbelievable. So Donald Trump Jr., he jokingly called together TPAC, like Trump PAC, instead of CPAC. According to the Times, it's what it feels like, guys. This is what DJT Jr. said. It felt less like an awkward joke and more a statement of 2021. Don Jr. is absolutely on a roll. I've been impressed with him from time to time, and I tell you what, he is rising. And the whole thing about CPAC, I'll conclude it with this. It kind of picked up on the theme, and of course, I've been telling the president he can use my little slogan, "Make America First Again." Feel free to use that. I think it's the right way. But CPAC in general, man, it picks up on my goal is to stop the progressive takeover of this country. And here's the goal of my show, basically. It's to educate people, educate yourself and others, motivate people, yourself and others, and activate yourself and others. In other words, do something. And as Donald Trump, when he was naming names, when you have to eliminate some folks out there, I'm talking about at the voting booth. So as I always say about enjoying the show, I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. But I got to play you one video from Mr. Joe Biden at the same time in Texas, basically, that Donald Trump was giving his great speech in Orlando. This is the current occupant of the White House doing his best, I suppose. Check it out.
I think he was getting on a plane. He told me he came in to see me last event. And Representatives Shirley Jackson Lee, Al Green, Sylvia Garcia, Lizzie Pinelli, Pinell, and what am I doing here? I'm going to lose track here.
That's a very good question, sir. What am I doing here? I mean, that is what every American should be asking. What is he doing here? How did the heck did we get here? We got to do whatever we can, ladies and gentlemen, to protect ourselves from the idiocracy that has taken over this great nation. But Joe Biden said it himself. What am I doing here? God help us. I don't have the answer to that. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, share it with others. Remember our YouTube channel, John Martin Talks. Especially remember our sponsors. Look above the show, no matter when or where you're watching it. Click on our sponsors because we need you to support those of us in the fight. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great nation because showing that last video, she needs it and deserves it more than ever. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.